The sand howled, a relentless banshee whipping Leyla's face with grit. Squinting through the swirling orange, she clung to the rocky outcrop, the only refuge from the desert's fury. This wasn't a typical sandstorm. It felt alive. Suddenly, a jagged crack split the rock face, revealing an inscription glowing with an otherworldly light. Leyla, desert wind of the Qajar tribe, had stumbled upon something ancient, something that pulsed with forgotten magic. The storm subsided as abruptly as it began. The inscription, etched in a language long dead, spoke of a hidden oasis, a paradise guarded by the sands. The legend of the lost oasis had always been a campfire whisper, a myth to entertain restless nights. Now, etched in stone, it seemed tangible. Back at the tribe camp, the elder, weathered and wise, scoffed. "The oasis is a mirage, a test for the greedy. Seek it not, child." But the inscription had ignited a spark in Leyla's restless spirit. Fate, or perhaps the whispering sands themselves, intervened. A stranger, cloaked in an aura of charm and mystery, arrived, Nasir. He spoke of the inscription, his eyes gleaming with avarice. The elder saw the danger in his gaze, but Nasir's words, laced with promises of power, found fertile ground in the hearts of some tribesmen, especially the ambitious war chief, who saw an opportunity to usurp the elder's authority. Torn between loyalty and the thrilling call of adventure, Leyla found herself joining Nasir's expedition. As they ventured deeper into the unforgiving desert, the harsh beauty of the landscape unfolded around them, towering dunes sculpted by the wind, canyons that whispered forgotten secrets, and the skeletal remains of civilizations long past. The journey was fraught with peril. Razor-toothed sandworms erupted from the dunes, their hungry maws snapping at their heels. Cutthroat scavengers, drawn by the promise of plunder, stalked them in the shadows. Leyla's scimitar, honed by years of desert life, danced a deadly ballet, protecting her and her wary companions. Yet, amidst the dangers, Leyla began to suspect Nasir's true motives. He spoke in hushed tones, his gaze flickering between the map etched from the inscription and the war chief. Pieces clicked into place. The oasis wasn't just a hidden paradise. It held the key to power, and Nasir intended to use it to control the desert, to overthrow the elder, and bend the Qajar tribe to his will. Leyla, caught between the tribe she loved and the adventure that had ensnared her, now faced a far greater challenge than navigating the treacherous dunes. She had to choose a side. As they stumbled upon the ruins of an ancient city, its crumbling towers and colonnades hinting at a long-lost civilization, Nasir's true intentions became all too clear. He was not a seeker of knowledge, but a conqueror, intent on using the power of the oasis to control the desert and those who dwelt within it. The war chief, blinded by ambition and seduced by the promise of power, followed Nasir without question. But Leyla could not. She could not betray her tribe, nor could she stand idly by as Nasir turned the oasis into a weapon. With a heavy heart, she turned her back on the expedition, vowing to find a way to stop them. As she raced away, she knew that time was running out. The inscription's map, etched into her memory, led her on a perilous journey through the heart of the desert. She dodged sandstorms, fought off predators, and faced her own doubts and fears. But she could not shake the feeling that she was being watched, that something ancient and powerful was guiding her steps. Finally, after days of relentless travel, she reached the oasis. It was as the inscription had described, a lush oasis hidden beneath a veil of shimmering mirages. But she could also see that Nasir and the war chief were close behind her. They had followed the same trail, and soon they would be upon the oasis. Without hesitation, Leyla drew her scimitar and charged forward. She would not allow them to desecrate this sacred place. As she raced across the sand, the wind whipping her hair and the oasis's verdant foliage growing closer, she felt a surge of determination and courage. She would not fail her tribe, nor would she allow the oasis's power to fall into the wrong hands. The battle that ensued was brutal. Sand swirled around them, obscuring the sky, as the two sides clashed. The war chief, blinded by his lust for power, fought with a fury that was both terrifying and pitiful. But Nasir, the charismatic and cunning stranger, proved to be Leyla's greatest foe. His movements were fluid and graceful, his swordplay elegant and deadly. He was no mere warrior, but a master of the desert's hidden arts. Yet, despite his skill, Leyla refused to yield. Fueled by her love for her people and the oasis's ancient magic, she fought with a ferocity that even the sands had never seen. And, as the sun began to set, casting a golden light across the oasis, she finally managed to best Nasir. His sword clattered to the sand, and he bowed his head in defeat. "You are a worthy adversary, Leyla," he said, his voice tinged with admiration and respect. "But your love for your people has made you blind to the true potential of this place. The oasis is not meant to be hidden away. It is meant to be shared, to bring peace and prosperity to all who dwell in the desert." Leyla, still breathing heavily from the exertion of the battle, looked deep into Nasir's eyes. She saw the truth in his words, and she knew that she could not deny the oasis its destiny. With a heavy heart, she reached down and helped him to his feet. "Perhaps," she said, "you are right." Together, they turned their backs on the oasis and led the war chief and the remaining tribesmen away. They would find a way to share the oasis's secrets, to ensure that its power was wielded with wisdom and compassion. In doing so, they would honor the spirits of the desert and the ancient civilizations that had come before them, ensuring that the oasis's legacy lived on for generations to come. As they approached the encampment, Leyla could feel the weight of their decision pressing down upon her. The war chief's eyes bored into her, filled with hatred and betrayal. She knew that he would not rest until he had undermined their efforts and reclaimed the power for himself. The other tribesmen, too, seemed divided, unsure whether to follow their traditional leader or embrace the change that Leyla and Nasir promised. Night fell, and a fire was lit in the center of the camp. The flames danced and crackled, casting eerie shadows across the faces of the tribe. Leyla and Nasir took their places before the fire, preparing to make their case for the oasis. They spoke of the magic that flowed through the sand and the water, of the wisdom of the ancients, and the promise of a brighter future. Their words were met with skepticism and whispers, but they persisted. "We must be patient," Nasir whispered to Leyla, as they sat side by side. "The people have known nothing but this life, this way of living. It will take time for them to understand, to accept what we are offering them." Leyla nodded, her heart heavy with doubt. "But what if we fail?" she asked, her voice barely audible above the rustling of the wind. "What if we cannot protect the oasis from those who would use its power for their own gain?" Nasir reached out and took her hand in his. "Then we shall fight, Leyla," he said, his grip firm and reassuring. "Together we shall defend this place with our lives, for it is not only our destiny, but the destiny of all who dwell in the desert." With renewed determination, Leyla faced the tribe once more. The flames danced in her eyes, mirroring the fire before them. She knew that the road ahead would be long and fraught with danger, but she was willing to fight for what she believed in. She would not let the oasis, or her people, down. Beside her, Nasir stood tall and proud, his gaze fixed on the faces of the tribesmen, their expressions a mix of doubt, curiosity, and fear. The war chief, his features twisted into a mask of hatred, stepped forward. "You speak of a new beginning," he spat. "Of a future brighter than anything we've ever known. But what proof do you have? How do we know that the oasis won't bring destruction upon us?" Leyla took a deep breath, steadying herself against the onslaught of his words. "The oasis is not a curse," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. "It is a gift, a chance for us to grow, to learn from the mistakes of the past and forge a better future for ourselves. We must have faith, for faith is what has guided us through the darkness of the desert." The war chief laughed, a bitter, mocking sound. "Faith in what? In you and your tales of magic?" he challenged. "We are desert dwellers, Leyla. We have survived by our wits and our strength, not by relying on fairy tales." Nasir stepped forward, his expression calm despite the hostility in the air. "You are right," he said, meeting the war chief's gaze unflinchingly. "We cannot expect the tribe to simply take our word for it. We must show them the power of the oasis, and the wonders it can bring." With a wave of his hand, He summoned a small trickle of water from the air, allowing it to cascade into a nearby bowl. The tribe gasped, eyes wide with surprise and wonder. Leyla nodded, her own expression hopeful. "The oasis is not just a source of water, but of life," she said. "It can sustain us, and allow us to grow stronger. Together, we can harness its power and use it to make the desert a place of abundance once more." She gestured to the horizon, where the faint outline of another oasis could be seen. "We have seen the proof. Other tribes are already benefiting from its magic. Do we wish to be left behind, or do we seize this opportunity and embrace our destiny?" The war chief's features darkened, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. "This is not natural," he growled. "This power does not belong to us. It is an abomination, a threat to our very existence." He turned to the crowd, his voice rising above the wind. "I say we strike now, while we still can. We must destroy the oasis and its magic, before it destroys us first." The crowd began to murmur amongst themselves, some nodding in agreement, others looking uncertain. Nasir exchanged a worried glance with Leyla, but she remained resolute. "The choice is yours," she said, her voice steady. "But know this, if you choose to follow the war chief's path, you will be choosing death over life. For the oasis is not a curse, but a gift. And the power it holds can be harnessed for the greater good, if only you have the courage to believe in it." The wind picked up, whipping through their clothes and tangling their hair. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the desert in shadow. In the flickering light, the faces of the tribe were etched with doubt and uncertainty. They had followed the war chief, trusting in his judgment and his battle prowess. But now, as they watched the tense alliance between Leyla and Nasir, they wondered if they had made a mistake. The war chief's face was flushed with anger, his eyes blazing with hatred as he glared at the two young leaders. He had lost the battle, and now he was determined to regain control by sowing seeds of doubt in the minds of the tribe. "Leyla and Nasir have brought a curse upon us," he shouted, his voice carrying across the sand. "They have brought the magic of the oasis, a power that is not ours to wield." But as he spoke, a small voice from the crowd cut through the tension. It was an elder, respected for his wisdom and his years of experience. "Perhaps the magic of the oasis is not meant for us to understand," he said, gesturing toward the horizon. "Perhaps it is a gift from the gods meant to teach us that there are forces at work beyond our comprehension. It is up to us to decide if we will embrace that gift, or turn our backs on it." Leyla and Nasir exchanged a look of gratitude. They knew that the elder's words could sway the crowd, and they were determined to make their case. They stepped forward, their voices steady despite the palpable tension in the air. "The oasis is not a curse," Leyla began. "It is a source of life, of hope, of prosperity. We have seen its power with our own eyes. We have tasted its water, and we know that it can change our fate." Nasir nodded in agreement. "The magic of the oasis is not something to be feared," he said. "It is something to be embraced. With its power, we can make the desert bloom once more. We can provide for our people, and ensure that our tribe thrives for generations to come." He gestured toward the horizon, where the oasis could be seen glimmering in the distance. "We have tasted its water, and we know that it is a gift from the gods. A gift that was meant for us." The war chief, however, was not swayed by their words. He stood tall, his chest thrust out, as he shouted, "You are fools! The oasis is a trap. It is a curse, meant to ensnare us and destroy us." The crowd murmured, uncertain of whom to believe. Leyla stepped forward, her voice steady and resolute. "The oasis is not a curse," she insisted. "It is a source of life. And if we are wise, if we work together, we can harness its power for the greater good. We can use it to bring prosperity and peace to our people." She glanced at Nasir, and then continued, "We have seen the oasis's potential. We have felt its power course through our veins. And we are determined to share that gift with all of you." As they spoke, the elder who had first voiced his support for Leyla and Nasir now stepped forward. He placed a hand on each of their shoulders, giving them his blessing. I have known this desert for longer than any of you, he said, his voice strong and clear. And I can tell you that what they say is true. The oasis is not a curse. It is a gift meant to guide us through these dark times. He turned to the rest of the tribe, his gaze unwavering. We must not turn our backs on this gift. We must embrace it, and use it to forge a new future for ourselves and for our children. The war chief's face darkened, and he began to shout again, but his voice was drowned out by the rising cheers of the tribe. One by one, they came forward, their voices adding to the chorus of support for Leyla and Nasir. The elder's blessing seemed to carry weight, and the tribe looked to him for guidance. They were willing to listen, to consider the possibilities that lay before them. As the cheering died down, Leyla and Nasir exchanged a look of triumph. They knew that this was not the end, that there would be challenges ahead. But they also knew that they had taken the first step towards making their vision a reality. They had planted the seed of hope, and now it was up to the tribe to nurture it and allow it to grow. The elder gestured for them to approach, and as they did, he placed a hand on each of their shoulders. You have shown great courage and wisdom, he said. The fate of our tribe now lies in your hands. We trust that you will lead us to a brighter future. His gaze shifted to the oasis, visible on the horizon, and a wistful expression came over his face. It is a great responsibility, he continued, but we have faith that you will rise to the challenge. Leyla and Nasir nodded solemnly, their hearts racing with anticipation and fear. They knew that the road ahead would not be easy. But they also knew that they could not turn back now. They had tasted the power of the oasis, and they knew that it was their destiny to harness it for the good of their people. On that determined note, Leyla and Nasir, along with some of the tribe members, embarked for the oasis. Many days later, they returned and once again addressed the tribe. They raised their voices together, speaking of the promise of the oasis, of the hope and prosperity that lay ahead. And as they spoke, the people of the Qajar tribe began to believe. They began to see the potential, to imagine a future where the oasis's magic could transform their lives, and make the desert bloom once more. But the war chief was not convinced. He saw only danger, only the potential for destruction. He clung to the old ways, to the belief that the oasis was a curse, sent to punish them for their sins. As Leyla and Nasir spoke, his expression grew darker, more menacing. He stood up, his voice booming across the gathering. You are fools, he shouted. Do you not see that this oasis is a curse? It is a thing born of evil, meant to lead us down a path of ruin. The people looked to the war chief, uncertain. They knew his strength, his leadership. But they also knew the love that Leyla and Nasir had for the oasis, the way it had changed them. They wondered if there could be truth in what they said. The war chief saw their hesitation, and his anger grew. It is not too late, he cried. You can still turn back. You can reject this false hope, and find salvation in our traditions. Leyla and Nasir exchanged a worried glance. They knew that the war chief's words would have an impact on the tribe. They could see the doubt beginning to creep into the eyes of some of their people. They had to find a way to convince the tribe to follow them, to embrace the oasis's power, and use it for the greater good. But how? The elder who had first supported them now stepped forward. He placed a comforting hand on each of their shoulders. We have seen the oasis's power with our own eyes, he said, his voice calm and steady. We have felt its potential. We have felt its power course through our veins. And we are determined to share that gift with all of you. As they spoke, the elder who had first voiced his support for Leyla and Nasir began to slowly gain the trust of the tribe. They listened intently as he explained how the oasis had changed him, how it had shown him that there was hope for a brighter future. Slowly but surely, the doubts that the war chief had sown began to fade. The people looked to Leyla and Nasir, their eyes filled with hope and determination. They were ready to follow them, to embrace the oasis's power, and use it for the greater good. But the war chief was not yet ready to give up. As the sun set and the stars began to twinkle in the sky, he gathered his most loyal followers around a campfire. They spoke in hushed tones, conspiring against Leyla and Nasir. The war chief's plan was to sabotage the oasis, to destroy it before it could destroy them all. He knew that if he could convince the tribe that the oasis was dangerous, that it was a threat to their very existence, they would turn against Leyla and Nasir. Throughout the night, the war chief's followers crept through the camp, spreading rumors and lies about the oasis. They told stories of how it had summoned monsters from the depths of the desert, how it had corrupted the minds of those who had touched its waters. They spoke of a great evil that lurked within the oasis, waiting for the right moment to strike. As dawn broke and the people of the tribe awoke, they were met with a new sense of unease. The whispers of the night before had taken root, and many now doubted the wisdom of following Leyla and Nasir. The war chief knew that this was his chance. He stepped forward, his voice loud and commanding, calling for a vote on whether to continue with their plan to harness the power of the oasis or to abandon it and return to their traditional ways. The tension in the air was palpable as the people gathered around, uncertain of what decision to make. It was then that a young boy, no more than 10 summers old, stepped forward. His face was etched with fear, but his eyes were filled with determination. He spoke of how the oasis had shown him visions of a brighter future, of a time when their people would no longer suffer in the harsh desert. He told them of the great cities that lay beyond the dunes, of the lush gardens and crystal-clear oases that would be theirs if they only embraced the power of the oasis. His words resonated with the crowd, and soon others began to speak up, sharing their own visions and experiences with the oasis. The war chief, seeing his plan beginning to unravel, grew desperate. He shouted insults at Leyla and Nasir, accusing them of being selfish and power-hungry. He called upon the spirits of their ancestors, claiming that they would curse their tribe if they dared to follow these two young leaders. But it was too late. The people had heard the truth in the words of the young boy, and they were no longer willing to be led astray by the lies and manipulations of their former ally. As the sun began to rise higher in the sky, the vote was taken. The majority of the tribe chose to follow Leyla and Nasir, to harness the power of the oasis, and use it for the greater good. The war chief, defeated and enraged, gathered his most loyal followers and fled into the desert, vowing to one day return and claim what he believed was rightfully his. Leyla and Nasir stood before their people, their hearts filled with gratitude and determination. They knew that their journey was just beginning, but they were confident that together they could harness the oasis's power and create a brighter future for their tribe. As they looked out over the sea of faces, they saw hope and potential where once there had been only despair. And with each passing day, that hope and potential grew stronger, as they began to unlock the secrets of the oasis and reveal its true potential to their people. One day, a lone traveler approached their camp, his eyes wild with fear. He warned them of an impending attack by a rival tribe, allies of the war chief. Leyla and Nasir didn't know whether to believe the stranger, but they couldn't ignore the threat. They gathered their people and prepared for battle, setting up defenses and training their warriors. In the midst of the preparations, they also took the opportunity to remind their people of the strength they derived from unity and the power of the oasis. As the day wore on, tensions ran high. Leyla and Nasir walked among their warriors, offering words of encouragement and reassurance. They had trained their people well, and they knew that they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The enemy tribe arrived, their numbers vast and their weapons glinting in the sunlight. The battle raged for hours, with both sides fighting valiantly. Leyla and Nasir led their warriors from the front, their strategic minds and quick thinking proving to be invaluable assets. The war chief, seeing his former allies fighting against him, could not bear the sight. Enraged, he mounted his finest steed and charged towards Leyla, determined to end her reign and take back what he believed was his. Nasir, seeing the danger, raced to intercept him. The two leaders engaged in a fierce duel, their blades clashing and their breaths hot against the desert air. As the battle raged on, their warriors fought on, unaware of the true stakes of their conflict. Eventually, Nasir's quicker reflexes and superior training allowed him to gain the upper hand. He pressed his attack, forcing the war chief back until he was cornered. With a final, desperate swing, Nasir beheaded the war chief, ending his reign of terror and bringing an end to the battle. As the defeated enemy retreated back into the desert, Leyla and Nasir stood before their people, their shoulders straining under the weight of their blood-stained cloaks. They had emerged victorious, but at a great cost. They knew that their enemies would not forget this defeat, and that they would one day rise again to challenge them. However, for now, they could enjoy the fruits of their labor and the adulation of their people. In the aftermath of the battle, Leyla and Nasir took the time to reflect on the events that had transpired. They knew that the war chief's hatred had been born out of jealousy and a refusal to accept change. They also understood that their leadership had not been without fault. They vowed to learn from their mistakes and to never take their people's trust for granted. They worked tirelessly to rebuild what had been destroyed during the conflict and to repair the relationships that had been strained. Years passed, and under their guidance, the oasis continued to flourish. Their people prospered, and their villages grew into a thriving civilization. They maintained peaceful relations with their neighbors and continued to trade with them, sharing knowledge and resources. Leyla and Nasir ruled wisely and justly, always remembering the lessons they had learned during their early struggles. They knew that their victory had been hard-won, and that the price of freedom and progress was often high. Yet they also knew that their people were resilient, and together, they could overcome any obstacle. One day, as they sat beside the cool waters of the oasis, Leyla turned to Nasir and said, "Do you ever wonder what might have happened if we had failed? If the war chief had won and taken the oasis for himself?" Nasir looked at her solemnly and replied, "I often think about that. And I realize that our victory was not just ours. It belonged to every person in this tribe who stood beside us, who fought and died for what we believed in. We owe it to them to continue leading with honor and wisdom." Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider subscribing to stay updated with our latest stories, give us a like if you want to see more, and drop a comment below to let us know your thoughts.